Just a reminder, if we could ask our VIP guests to please make their way onto pool deck for the opening ceremony. That's our VIP guests. Please make your way onto pool deck for the opening ceremony. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2025 Australian Age Diving Championships in the Gold Coast, Queensland. I'd now like to hand over to Auntie Erica to perform the Welcome to Country.
Jingery, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Can I have you all say jingery? Well, I can't hear you. So Nanyana Erica, my name is Erica, and I am a traditional custodian from the Yukon-Bar language region. That region stems from Logan to the Scenic Rim to the Tweed River and bordered by the Kulbul, beautiful Pacific Ocean. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all to country. And what a beautiful afternoon to start your tournament. This space is very close to my heart. It is where I swam in school carnivals for many, many years. My daughter actually did swim squad training and now is home for the next few days of the Australian Age Championship diving. You're very lucky that the sun's out this afternoon. This space rests on Coomera country, and my connection to that is through Julia Sandy, my great-great-grandmother. Now, she was the first Aboriginal woman, a native of Southport, that had her births registered in the encampment about a kilometre west. She and many other families lived along these rivers, and they relished in the resources that this place had, from the fish in the sea, the oysters on the rocks, to the dugong that would come in, and to the berries that are on the embankment. Now, my mother always said, she's 93, she said, I never took a lunchbox. I just took the berries from country. But not only that, it also is a place of stories. And one of those stories is of our mullet and Gawanda, the clever dolphin. And that story originates from behind you. In the cooler months, we will look to the skies in the evening. We look for the Milky Way. And we look for the emu that was stretched out within the Milky Way. And that's the black spaces. And when we saw that, we knew the mullet were coming in to spawn. We would go down to the bank with our spears and wait for a giant mass to come in. When we saw that, we would tap the top of the water, and Gawanda, the dolphin, would come in and herd that mullet into the shallows so we could spear some of them and have a good feed that night. We'd only take what we want, and we took a few extras just to give to the dolphin as a sign of respect. Now, these stories, and speaking of our ancestors, allows us to break the binding of the past and allows us to bridge that gap of a wisdom and values from the oldest living culture that is for all of us to share and learn from. I like to pay respects to those elders, and I like to acknowledge that they continue to walk with us across country. I would also like to pay respects to all of you, to the challenges that you face within this competition. And I applaud you, because there is no way I would get up on that board and dive. I'm scared of heights. So well done. As you will share this country, I would like you to listen deeply, walk softly, and have love and respect for all. But importantly, share your stories so we all can learn. Now, I would like you to close your eyes as we go for a trip across country with the didgeridoo. starts in the morning when Gagagru, the kookaburra, brings the sun up with his call. He looks down below and can see the kumkum bird, our bubuk owl, as he is ready to go to sleep, and he takes one last call. Gagagru continues his flight, and he looks down below and can see the mother Mooney, our kangaroo, hopping very fast. And right behind her is her baby Joey. They are trying to catch the mob, because in the distance they can hear the cry of our wild dog. And with that mob is a very cranky emu. He continues his flight and looks down below and see the magpie looking for a tasty morsel. He continues to the ocean and with very sharp hearing can hear the song of whales. It is coming to the end of the day. He must return home, for he needs to take one last call to set the sun. May you have a wonderful competition, and congratulations to all of you. Bagawani, thank you.
Music for the march on or not? Is it ready or is that on the Australian anthem? Or just on generic music?
Do you need me to press something? Or are you going to do it?
Just we need some song, something to go back to introduce the athletes.
Oh,
Where's the march on?
March-ons. Then, yeah, yeah. Star Wars?
No, choose something like Uptown Funk. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Auntie Erica. We'd now like to introduce the athletes competing in this competition. Press it. Introducing the team from New South Wales. The team from South Australia. Tasmania. Victoria. Western Australia. New Zealand. And our host state, Queensland. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to introduce Alex Newton, CEO of Diving Australia.
I don't think you can hear it. Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Age National Championships. Delighted that so many of you are here today, and we have the biggest entry again competitors that were at the competition last year. So just really, really excited at the entries and the number of people that have turned out for the competition this week, including happy that the weather is and the sun is shining for us after the rain we've had in Brisbane the last few weeks. Before I start, there's just a few really important people I'd like to introduce who are so part of the diving family and the history of our sport and have just such a huge background in the sport. Madeline Barnett in the cream hat, an Olympian and one of our life members. Next to her is Robin Arlo, another former Olympian. Wendy Puller is also one of our life members. And then somebody who is always embarrassed to be named and shamed, and that's Tony Tui, who's our newest life member, and who's also the competition manager slash organised and done all the technical work behind the scenes. So thanks, Tony. I've run these our state association, and I'm really delighted that Paul Woods and the President of Diving Queensland and Lisa Wright, the CEO of Diving Queensland, have joined us today. You will be seeing Paul on Sunday, I think, in the competition, so we'll be looking forward to that. And Lisa has just got back from judging internationally and will be doing some work with us here too. So thanks, Lisa. As you know, we are a sport funded mainly by the Australian government, and pleased that Carolyn Brisbois from the Australian Sports Commission, who funds us, is also here today. And unfortunately, Craig Phillips from Commonwealth Games Australia and Matt Carroll from the Australian Olympic Committee couldn't be here, but both send their best wishes for a great championships. I'd just like to say a few more thank yous before we hand over for the national anthem, and that's to the volunteers, the technical officials, the judges, and every parent, everybody that makes this sport so great. Next week's National Volunteering Week, so we'll be doing lots of celebrations then, but it seemed remiss of me not to mention all the volunteers in advance. There's two particular ones to mention in terms of the competition and making sure it runs safe and well, and that's Jane Bowell, who's chief referee today, and then Kevin Hall will take over as chief referee from Thursday through Sunday. And lastly, I just want to thank all you athletes. As I said right at the beginning, this is the largest age championships we've ever staged at such a great venue here on the Gold Coast. And I just want to say, please just do your best, put on an amazing display, as I know you will, but most of all, enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to direct your attention to the 5-metre platform, and we'd also ask all of those people in the stands to please be standing for the Australian anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Aria Klein.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and 12 toil. Our home is kept by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aria Klein. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to, now that we've got all of our athletes on the pool deck, we're going to reintroduce each of the teams, and you'll notice they're broken up a little bit. We've got our 4 athletes here, and then we've got the rest of the teams over there. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand for the team from New South Wales. Now, all right, we're going to have to try that again. New South Wales, you've got to stand forward, wave the fans in the stand so they actually know who you are. The blue shirts just don't do it. So, New South Wales. South Australia. Tasmania. Victoria. Western Australia. New Zealand. And the home state, Queensland. Sorry, Alex, only give the audience a 4 out of 10. Just no volume. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand for all of our athletes. And athletes, if you'd like to now clear the pool deck. And, of course, our first events will be starting, which will be the State Team Challenge in a short while. All right. I've just been told the State Team Challenge athletes, can you just stay there so we can actually introduce you by name? All right, ladies and gentlemen, our first event this afternoon is the State Team Challenge. Now, this is a fun event because every single dive counts. So what we'll do is we start with our 13 and under competitors. All of the 13 and under competitors dive. Now, the person with the highest scoring dive gets 8 points. Second highest scoring dive gets 6. Third gets 4, then 3, 2, 1. The problem being the athletes who get 2 and 1 points, i.e. the lowest 2 scoring dives, are out. So they don't proceed to round 2. We'll then repeat that with the 14 to 15, 16 to 18, and of course our 19 plus athletes. So now that we're all ready to go, introducing the team from New South Wales. We have in the first Megan Lee, 14-15, Hannah Moody, 16 to 18, Sarah Malcolm, and 19 years plus, Lachlan Nguyen. The team from South Australia, in the 13 and under, Isabella Sylvester, 14-15, Casey Brink, 16 to 18, Madeline Rector, and 19 and over, Lacey Beauchar. The team from Tasmania, in the 14 and under, Chloe Wilcock, 14 to 15, Maddie Hardy, 16 to 18, Rosie Finn, and 19 and over, Jen Harris. The team from Victoria, in the 13 and under, Joshua Nicol, 14-15, John Tin, 16 to 18, Dylan Silver, and 19 and over, Blake Connors. The team from Western Australia. Now, automatically, no, Western Australia will be out in the first round with their 13 and under competitor because they're not there. So the other teams will only lose the 1 athlete in round 1. In the 14 to 15, Emily Ellis, 16 to 18, we have Michaela Larkin Boys, and 19 and over, Eliane Granland. And the team from Queensland, in the 14 and under, Abigail Dennis, 14 to 15, William Humphries, 16 to 18, Jonah Turner, and 19 and over, Mia Gillis. All right, athletes, warm up for your competition. and we look forward to seeing who goes through in each exciting round in the State Team Challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand for our distinguished guests as they leave the deck. Thank you.
coaching this team? That's all right. There was a list coming from you. All right. So wait, am I blind? She said. Oh, what?
If we could ask the officials for the next event to please take their positions. That's the officials for the State Team Challenge. Please take your positions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like our athletes are ready. They're all ready to rock and roll. Looking forward to putting on a good performance. Now remember, while the judges can't be influenced, cheering doesn't hurt, all right? Cheering doesn't hurt. So remember, please give as much support for your athletes as you possibly can during this competition. Some of these athletes will only get to do 1 dive, some will do 3. So we want to make it as much fun for them as we possibly can. Now over here, I'm here with your referee, Jane Boel, right here. And then we go around, we have our judges. Judge number 1, Helen Mercarella. Judge number 2, Monica Fly. Judge number 3, Whitney Michael. Judge number 4 is Caitlin Boel. Judge number 5, I can't see with the sunglasses, but it is not written on the sheet, so that always makes it fun. I can't see the face without the sunglasses. And judge number 7 is not there yet. So it's Susie Miles. Sorry, couldn't see you with the sunglasses on. And judge number 5. We're waiting for judge number 6, or we only have 5 judges? Oh, there are only 5 judges. So the judges are ready, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess we start with the team from New South Wales in the 13 and under. Our first diver for this competition will be Megan Yee from New South Wales. Her first dive, a 403C on the 1 metre board. Oh, well, the table's not ready. Sorry, Megan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we were pretty eager to get started. So we do have Megan Yee from New South Wales with a 403C on the 1 metre. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the scoreboard, judges' scores, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 7. So that's a good start to this competition. We now head up to the 5 metre, representing South Australia. We have Isabella Sylvester. Now, Isabella's doing a 201C from the 5 metre. Judges' scores on that one. Just waiting for them to come in. right, judges' scores 6, 7, 6.5, 6.5, 5.5. Now on the far side, on the 1 metre, we have Chloe Wilcock representing Tasmania. Her first dive, a 104C. Scores coming through for a 4 double, 4.5, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. Team number 4 representing Victoria, we've got Joshua Nicol up on the 3 metre springboard, 5.2, 3.1D. And judges' scores are 6.5, 5.5, 5.5, 6, 5.5. All right, in the 13 and under, representing Queensland, Abigail Dennis with a 201V from the 3 metre springboard. All right, judges' scores on this one are 4.5, 4.5, 5, 4.5, 4. Now that completes the first round for the 13 and under competitors. We already know that the team from Western Australia will not be going through in the 13 and under category because they don't have a competitor. We're now having a look. First place gets 8, second place gets 6, third place gets 4, and then it goes 3, 2, 1. So we're looking at this time. We've got the points all allocated. And of course we say goodbye to Western Australia and Queensland. So thank you to those athletes. They will not be going through to the second round. So Western Australia and Queensland out in the round 1 for the 13 and under. Moving to the 14-15, getting excited here. New South Wales, Hannah Moody on the 3 metre, 5.1, 3.2D. Looking for this. Judges scores 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 7. So that's a good start to the 14-15 competition. Diver number 2 representing South Australia, Casey Brink, 403B. All right, we're looking at the judges' scores, 6.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5. All right, we now move on to Tasmania. Maddie Hardy performing a 5.2, 3.1D from the 3 metre. Having a look at the judges' scores, 5, 5, 5.5, 6, 5.5. All right, 14-15 representing Victoria, Jian Din doing a 403C from the 5 metre platform. Our judges' scores, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6. All right, we now move on to Western Australia, who is the second last diver. We've got the categories wrong here. Emily Wallace from Western Australia, 403C on the 3 metre. No, hang on. No, we're in the 14.15. All right, it is Emily Wallace on the 5 metre, am I right? Yes, Emily Wallace on the 5 metre. Thank you, Emily. Doing a 403C. All right, our judges' scores 6.5, 6, 6, 5.5, 5.5. And of course, representing Queensland, William Humphreys, 403B from the 3 metre. Our judges' scores 7, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 6. Now that completes the round for the 14-15 divers. So the 16 to 18 divers have a small break while we work out the scores here. Now remembering, first place or the highest scoring dive gets 8 points for their state. Second highest scoring dive gets 6. Third is 4, and then it goes 3, 2, 1. Unfortunately, 2 and 1 will not be making it through to the next round. So they're just checking the scores twice. Ooh. This is interesting. We had 2 athletes who had the same score. So that's quite interesting. But they weren't the ones who were leaving. So unfortunately, we say goodbye to Maddie Hardy from Tasmania and Emily Wallace from Western Australia in the 14-15 category. Great effort there, athletes. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing you in the next round. We now move on to the 16 to 18 category, and we start with Sarah Malcolm from New South Wales doing a 105B from the 7.5 metre. Judges' scores 5.5, 5.5, 6, 5.5, 5.5. Our next diver's representing South Australia, Madeline Regter. She's performing a 403B from the 3 metre. Looking at the judges' scores, 7.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6. That's 2 divers down with 4 to go in this category. The next diver representing Tasmania, Rosie Pelham, 105B, 3 metre. Judges' scores 3.5, 4, 4, 3.5, 4. And from Victoria, we have Dylan Silver, 105B, 3 metre. Judges' scores on that dive, 6, 6.5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. And our next diver competing, representing Western Australia, Michaela Larkin Boys, 403B, 3 metre. And our judges' scores 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 6. And diver number 6 for the 16 to 18 category, Jonah Turner from Queensland, a 403B, 3 metre. Eight, 7.5, 8, 8, 7.5. Now that completes the 16 to 18 round. So we're having a look now. They're doing the scores. Remembering, of course, the lowest 2 scoring dives will not be making it through to the next round. And we're doing the scores, checking them twice, making sure it's all correct. All right, so we do have, this time around, we say goodbye to Rosie Pelham from Tasmania and also to Michaela Larkin Boys from Western Australia. All right, we're now into the 19 plus round. New South Wales, Lachlan Nguyen, 105B from the 5 metre. Judges' scores 5.5, 4, 4.5, 4.5, 5.5. Diver number 2 representing South Australia, Lacey Beaushire, 105B, 3 metre. Our judges' scores 6.5, 7, 6.5, 6, 7.5. And on the 3 metre again, Jennifer Harries representing Tasmania, 5132D. Judges' scores 4, 3, 4, 4, 4.5. Representing Victoria, Blake Connors with a 5-2, 3-3D on the 3 metre. All right, judges' scores 5.5, 5, 5, 4.5, 6. Representing Western Australia, we have Eliane Granland with a 405C from the 3 metre. Judges' scores on that dive, 4.5, 4.5, 5, 5, 4.5. And representing the home state Queensland, Mia Gillis, 105B, 3 metre. Judges' scores 6, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6. Now that completes the first round for the 19 plus age group. So we're going to have a look. Now remember, the highest 4 scoring dives will go through to the next round. The lowest 2 scoring dives shall not. We're waiting, they're checking all their scores. All right. So in this round it is Jennifer Harries from Tasmania and Blake Connors from Victoria. Thank you to those 2 athletes. Now we move on to the second round with the 13 and under group. It's all right, just have a small breather, Megan. They have to give me some new sheets with a few less athletes, so they're just crossing out each one. All right, we're ready to go for round 2. Thank you for your patience there, Megan. All right, well, now we'll start with Megan Yee, 105B from 3 metre. Judges' scores 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5. Now Isabella Sylvester on 5 metre, 403C. Our judges' scores 4.5, 4, 5.5, 5, 5. On the 3 metre, we have Chloe Wilcock, 403C. Judges' scores 4.5, 4.5, 4, 4.5, 4. Joshua Nickel, 403C, 5 metre. Judges' scores 6, 6.5, 6, 6, 6. Quite a good finish to the 13 and under round. Now obviously the highest 2 scoring dives from that round will be going through to the next round. So in this round, we're waiting for the scores. All right, so in this round, We know now that Megan Yee will be going through to the next round, as will Joshua Nicol. So thank you to Isabella and Chloe. Now we move on to the 14-15. Hannah Moody, 105B on the 3 metre. Judges score on that dive, 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6.5. On the 3 metre, Casey Brink, 201B. Our judges scores 6, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 5.5. And our next diver, Jian Din, 5.2, 3.3D. 3 metre. Judges scores 5, 6, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5. And on the 3 metre, our next diver, William Humphreys, 105B. Judges scores 3.5, 3.5, 4, 3.5, 3.5. Now that is the 4 divers in the 14 to 15 age category. Now remember, 2 will be going through to the final round, 2 will not. If this was a reality TV show, it would now be when they do the suspenseful music and cut to break. But instead of that, what we are going to say is, all right. So William Humphreys and Casey Brink will not be going through to the next round, which means Jian Din and Hannah Moody are. Well done. All right, we now go to the 16 to 18 age category. Our first diver is up on the 7.5 metre platform, Sarah Malcolm, 405C. Judges scores 4, 4, 4.5, 4, 4.5. Diver number 2 on the 3 metre, Madeline Regter, 105B. Judges scores 5.5 from all judges. All right, on the 3 metre we have Dylan Silver, 405C. Judges scores 7.5, 7, 7, 7, 7. And diver number 4, Jonah Turner, 205B, 3 metre. Judges' scores are 4, 4.5, 5, 4.5, 5. So that completes that round of the 16 to 18 category. Now the only thing we know for definite so far is that the New South Wales cheer squad goes through to the next round. We don't know about the divers yet, but we will find out. So this time, oh, all right, it was close, but this time around we say goodbye to Sarah Malcolm and Madeline Regter. Thank you, and we will see the other athletes in the final round. We're now on to the 19 plus, way up on the 5 metre platform. We've got Lachlan Nguyen with a 5.233D. All right, judges' scores 7, 7.5, 7, 7, 7. Our next diver, Lacey Beaushire, 405C on the 3 metre. Judges' scores 4, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4. All right. And our next diver, Eliane Granland, 205C, 3 metre. Our judges' scores 6, 5.5, 6, 5.5, 5.5. And Mia Gillis, 405C on the 7.5 metre platform. Judges' scores 4.5, 4.5, 5.5, 5, 4.5. Now, while our recording secretariat is tabulating the results and working out who goes through to the next round, we would ask that the athletes for the next events, which is the Masters Synchronized, if they could please get ready and make their way to the marshalling area. So that's the athletes for the next event. If you could please make your way to the marshalling area, and while you're doing that, we'll give you the results. Oh, okay. Our recording secretariat have told me that their two favourite states South Australia and Queensland are not going through to the next round. We do have a New South Wales person on the recording secretariat just to keep us honest though. But no, unfortunately, South Australia and Queensland not going through to the next round. We now go to the final round. Now, there'll be no further eliminations, but remember, 8 points for the person who gets the highest scoring dive, 6 points for the second highest. At the moment, it's any team, any state could be winning. So remember, lots of noise, give them a good cheer. Megan Yee on the 3 metre, 203B. Judges scores 5.5, 7, 6, 6, 5.5. It's all right, we just had some confusion there. We had Chloe still in the system, but it's actually Joshua who's here on the board. We looked at that. So Joshua Nickel, 105C from 3 metre. The 13 and under category showing how it's done there. Both Megan and Joshua, 6.5, 6, 6, 7.5, 7. So now one of those athletes has earned 8 points for their state, the other has earned 6, and they're doing very well there. All right, we now move on to the 14-15 category. On the 3 metre over there, Hannah Moody, 405C. Our judges' scores 4.5, 4.5, 5.5, 5, 5.5. Also on the 3 metre springboard, we have Jian Jin doing a 105C. Sorry, Jian, we just have to withdraw the others. Casey Brink's withdrawn. All right, now we'll re-announce that dive for you. Jian Jin with a 105C from the 3 metre springboard. Judges' scores for that one, 6, 6, 5.5, 6, 6. So that concludes the 14 to 15 age category. We now move on to the 16 to 18. And our first diver in the 16 to 18 category. We're just waiting for the scoreboard, Dylan. Just got to make sure we've got the right person on there. So our first diver in the 16 to 18 category, Dylan Silver, 5'2", 33D from the 3 metre. Judges scores 6.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 6. And then we move on to Jonah Turner with a 5.3, 3.5D, 3 metre. Our judges scores 7, 7, 6.5, 6, 6.5. And of course that just leaves our 19 plus competitors. We have 2 remaining, New South Wales and Western Australia. Up on the 5 metre we have Lachlan Nguyen with a 405C. Is he out there? Yep, hiding behind the pole. All right, judges scores 5, 4.5, 5, 5, 5. And Elian Granland, 5.2, 3.3D, 3 metre. Judges scores on that one 7.5, 6.5, 6.5, 7, 6.5. Now that means that all of our age groups have performed their dives, 3 rounds of dives, and of course we're now tabulating. No one gets eliminated this round, but we are adding up the points, and it's getting close. Whoa! All right. Just a reminder to all the competitors in the Masters Synchro, if you're in platform, if you can go over and marshal. They're just double checking the scores now. Oh, and it's close. Very close. All right, we have a result. The State Team Challenge, coming in 5th with a total of 23 points, Western Australia. Don't forget to give them a big cheer. Coming in 4th with a score of 34 points, South Australia. So we're moving east. Oh, and sorry, I did forget. Coming in 6th with 9 points, Tasmania. All right. Oh, now the question is, we've only got the East Coast left. Are we going from top to bottom, bottom to top, or are we working our way around? In 3rd place, with 44 points, the home team, Queensland. Now, that only leaves 2 teams, so can I hear Victoria? Can you hear me? See, if they're going to have a cheer squad like that, I don't think they're going to make it through. Victoria came 2nd with 57 points, which means the winners, New South Wales. So New South Wales are the winners of the State Team Challenge with 65 points. Now, we're just wondering where the trophy is. So, of course, where's the New South Wales team? Wave to everyone in the stands, tell them how good you were. And I must admit, it did help that they probably had the best cheer squad. And that's coming from a South Australian, so, you know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a very short break while all these athletes get ready. Then we'll march them on and get underway with the Masters competition. Oh, we have something coming over. So where have we gone? We've got Megan Yee, Hannah Moody, Lachlan Ewan, and who was the fourth person? Sarah Malcolm. So we need to see them all over here. Now Megan's already here because she was organised. She's dressed and ready to go. Where's the rest of the New South Wales team? Sarah Malcolm, Lachlan Ewan, and Hannah Moody. Hannah Moody's on her way. I'm excited. State team winners. All right, half the cheer squad's gone. What's going on here? The New South Wales cheer squad. They were all hiding in here. They were making lots of noise before. Now, ladies and gentlemen, over here are the winners of the State Team Challenge. They're about to be presented for their trophy by Jenny Donnett. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jenny Donnett was a 4-time Olympian representing Australia. She was the flag bearer for the 1992 Olympics for the Australian team. She's been to multiple Commonwealth Games, won multiple medals, and was on the Australian team for 20 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jenny Donnett presenting the trophy to New South Wales. next event on today's program is the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro. Under 100 years combined age, we have 18 teams competing. And the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro 100 plus combined age, for which we have 4 teams. Late. Introducing the competitors in the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro, under 100 combined age. Team number 1 representing Victoria, Matthew Azapati and Natalie Kozlov. Team number 2 representing Western Australia, Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson. Team number 3 representing Queensland, Nigel Dennis and Dwan Spitcher. Team number 4 representing Queensland, Tisha Managay and Sol Shim. Team number 5 representing New South Wales, Jamie Shields and Helen Lewsome. Team number 6 representing Queensland, Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis. Team number 7, a combined team of Western Australia and South Australia, Eliane Granland and Sam Will. Team number 8, representing South Australia, Zach Will and Lacey Beaushire. Team number 9, representing Western Australia, Sally Cream and Christoph Michael. Team number 10, representing Queensland, Molly Bowman and Natasha Waldroff. Team number 11, representing Western Australia, Serena Lee and Noah Dow. Team number 12, representing Victoria, Caitlin Murphy and Chloe Robinson. Team number 13, representing New South Wales, Monique Collin and Lainey Wilkins. Team number 14, representing New South Wales, Zachariah Gindi and Nina Papalato. And team number 15, a combined team of Victoria and New South Wales, Blake Connors and Lachlan Nguyen. Moving on to our men's, women's mixed 3-metre synchro 100 plus combined age. Team number 1 representing Queensland, Julie Matkovic and Jane Moran. Team number 2 representing New South Wales, Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer. Team number 3 representing New South Wales, Narissa Grabbett and Ross Burden. And team number 4, a combined team of South Australia and Victoria, Helen Mercarella and Andrew Robinson. Good luck, athletes. You may now warm up for your event. Thank you. athletes, just letting you know that you have 7 minutes remaining, and if we could have our officials in the positions by that time. Thank you. If we could please remind the officials for the next event to please take their positions. And athletes, you have roughly 2 minutes remaining. So I would suggest no further athletes up the stairs. dry off, warm up and get ready for what will be an awesome event. All right, we're just waiting for our officials to take their positions, and then we will get underway. With starting with the men's, women's and mixed 3 metre synchronised under 100 combined age, and then the men's, women's and mixed 3 metre synchro 100 plus combined age. Your referee for this event, Wendy Puller. Your execution judges, Execution 1, Monet Spirek. Execution 2, Madeline Regter. Execution 3, Mary Veal. And Execution 4, Jackie Larkin. Your synchronisation judges, Synchronisation 1, Jane Bowell. Synchronisation 2, Gavin Wood. Synchronisation 3, Monica Fly. Synchronisation 4, Delani Wathakaragay. And synchronisation 5, Gemma Goldie. All right, Delani, can you just tell me that it says as a party in Kozlov on your screen? It does. Thumbs up. Thank you very much. They're ready to go. We're just waiting for some others to clear the boards. Are they doing their fun? Oh, you're just staying there, or this is a final warm-up dive? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're almost ready to go. Just looking to our referee. Referee ready? All right, we're ready to go. So as soon as our first team is on the boards, we'll get underway with the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro under 100 combined age. We have 18 teams competing in this competition and then 4 in the 100 plus. We now commence with Team 1, representing Victoria, Matthew Azapati and Natalie Kozlov, 401B. Execution scores 6.5, 6.5, 5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 6, 5, 6. We now move on to team number 2, representing Western Australia. Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson, 103B. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 7, 6.5. Synchronization scores 8, 8, 8.5, 7, 8. Team number 3, representing Queensland, Nigel Dennis and Dwan Spitcher, 101C. Execution scores 4.5, 5.5, 6, 5.5. Synchronization scores 7, 6.5, 5.5, 6, 7. Team number 4, representing Queensland, Tisha Managay and Sol Shim, 103B. Execution scores 5.5, 5, 6.5, 6. Synchronization scores 7, 7, 6.5, 7, 7.5. Team number 5, representing New South Wales, Jamie Shields and Helen Lewsome, 103C. Execution scores 4.5, 4, 3.5, 5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5. Team number 6, representing Queensland, Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis, 103B. Execution scores 6.5, 5.5, 7.5, 7. Synchronization scores 7, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 5. Team number 7, a combined team of Western Australia and South Australia, Eliane Granland and Samuel Will, 401B. Execution scores 8, 6.5, 6.5, 7. Synchronization scores 7.5, 7, 7, 7, 6.5. Team number 8, representing South Australia, Zach Will and Lacey Beauchard, 101B. Execution scores 5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 7, 7, 6.5, 6, 6.5. Team number 9, representing Western Australia, Sally Cream and Christoph Michael, 101B. Execution scores 7, 7, 8, 7.5. Synchronization scores 6.5, 8, 8, 7, 7.5. Team number 10, representing Queensland, Molly Bowman and Natasha Waldroff, 103B. Execution scores 5.5, 6.5, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6, 5.5. Team number 11, representing Western Australia, Serena Lee and Noah Dow, 103B. Execution scores 6, 7, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.5. Team number 12, Caitlin Murphy and Chloe Robinson, 103B. Synchro 5. Execution scores 5.5, 4.5, 7, 7.5. Synchronization scores 4.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5. Team number 13, representing New South Wales, Monique Collin and Lainey Wilkins, 103B. Execution scores 6, 6, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 7, 6, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5. Team number 14, representing New South Wales, Zachariah Gindi and Nina Pappalardo, 103B. Execution scores 5, 4.5, 4.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 6, 6.5, 6, 5.5, 6. Team number 15, a combined team of Victoria and New South Wales, Blake Connors and Lachlan Nguyen, 201B. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 5.5, 4.5. Synchronization scores 5, 5.5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. Team number 16, representing Queensland, Julie Matkovic and Jane Moran, 101B. Execution scores 4, 4, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 5, 5.5, 6. Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer representing New South Wales, 103B. Execution scores 4.5, 6, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 5.5, 6.5, 5.5, 5.5. Narissa Grabbett and Ross Burden, 101C. Judges scores, execution scores 6, 6, 5.5, 6. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 7.5, 7, 6.5. And our last team, Helen Mercarella and Ross Burden, and Andrew Robinson, a combined team of South Australia and Victoria, 401B. Execution scores 4.5, 4.5, 4, 4.5. Synchronization scores 3.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3. That completes the first round of dives. We now move on to round 2. And in our under 100 years combined category, Matthew Azzopardi and Natalie Koslov, 201C. Execution scores 6, 6, 6.5, 5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6. Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson, 401B. Execution scores 6.5, 5.5, 7.5, 7. Synchronization scores 7, 7.5, 9, 7, 8. Nigel Dennis and Dwan Spitcher, 401B. Execution scores 5, 5.5, 5.5, 5. Synchronization scores 6, 6.5, 6, 6, 6. Tisha Managay and Sol Shim, 401B. Execution 2. Thank you. Execution scores 5.5, 5, 7, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5, 7. Jamie Shields and Helen Lewsom, 401C. Execution scores 5, 4.5, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5 from all judges. Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis, 403B. Execution scores 6.5, 5.5, 7, 7.5. Synchronization scores 7.5, 8.5, 8, 8, 8. Eliane Grandland and Samuel Will, 103B. Execution scores 6.5, 7, 6.5, 6. Synchronization scores 7, 8.5, 6.5, 7, 7.5. Zach Will and Lacey Beauchard, 401B. Execution scores 6.5, 6, 7.5, 7. Synchronization scores 7.5, 7.5, 8, 7, 7. Sally Crean and Christoph Michael, 401B. Execution scores 6, 6.5, 6.5, 7.5. Synchronization scores 7, 9, 8.5, 8, 8. Molly Bowman and Natasha Waldroff, 401B. Execution scores 6, 7, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 7, 7, 6.5, 6, 6.5. Serena Lee and Noah Dow, 201B. Execution scores 5.5, 5, 6, 5.5. Synchronization scores 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3. Caitlin Murphy and Chloe Robinson, 401B. Execution scores 6.5, 6.5, 7, 8. Synchronization scores 7.5, 7.5, 8, 8, 7. Monique Collin and Lainey Wilkins, 401B. Execution scores 5.5, 5.5, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 7, 6.5, 7. Zachariah Gindi and Nina Papalado 5231D. Execution scores 5, 5, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 6, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. Blake Connors and Lachlan Ewan 103B. Execution scores 6.5, 7.5, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6, 7. We now move into the 100 plus combined category. Team number 1, Julie Makovic and Jane Moran, 401C. Execution scores 1.5, 2.5, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer, 201A. Execution scores 5, 4.5, 5.5, 5. Synchronization scores 6, 6, 6, 5, 6.5. Narissa Grevitt and Ross Burden, 401C. Execution scores 5, 5.5, 2, 3.5. Synchronization scores 3, 3.5, 3, 3, 3. Helen Mercarella and Andrew Robinson, 101A. Execution scores 5, 5.5, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5, 6. That completes the second round of dives. We now move on to round 3 in our under 100 combined category. Matthew Azzopardi and Natalie Kozlov, 105B. Execution scores 5.5, 4.5, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 5, 5.5, 5.5. Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson, 403B. Execution scores 6.5, 7, 6.5, 7. Synchronization scores 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 7. Nigel Dennis and Dwan Spitcher, 201C. Execution scores 5.5, 5.5, 6, 5. Synchronization scores 7, 5, 6, 6, 6. Tisha Managay and Shoal Sim, 5, 1, 3, 2D. Execution scores 5.5, 6, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 7, 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5. Jamie Shields and Helen Lewson, 202A. Execution scores 5, 3.5, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 4.5, 5, 5, 6. Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis, 203B. Execution scores 6, 6, 6.5, 6. Synchronization scores 6, 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. Eliane Granland and Samuel Will, 405C. Execution scores 5, 5, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 5.5, 6, 6, 6. Zach Will and Lacey Beaushire, 205C. Execution scores 4, 3.5, 5.5, 4.5. Synchronization scores 4, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 5.5. Sally Cream and Christoph Michael 5132D. Execution scores 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 7, 6, 6.5. Molly Bowman and Natasha Waldroff 105C. Execution scores 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 5. Synchronization scores 4, 4, 4, 5, 5.5. Serena Lee and Noah Dow 405C. Execution scores 4.5, 3, 5.5, 6. Synchronization scores 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. Caitlin Murphy and Chloe Robinson 105B. Execution scores 6.5, 6, 5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 6.5, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5. Monique Collin and Lainey Wilkins 201B. Execution scores 4.5, 5, 5.5, 5. Synchronization scores 6, 6, 6.5, 6, 6.5. Zachariah Gindi and Nina Papalato 105B. Judges scores 5.5, 5, 4, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 5, 5.5, 5.5. Blake Connors and Lachlan Nguyen 405C. Execution scores 6.5, 5, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 3.5, 3.5, 4, 3, 3.5. We now move into the 100 plus age category combined. Julie Makovic and Jane Moran 103B. Execution scores 4.5, 4.5, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 5, 5.5, 6. Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer, 5111A. Execution scores 5, 5, 5.5, 6. Synchronization scores 5.5, 7, 7, 6, 6.5. Narissa Grabbit and Ross Burden, 103C. Execution scores 5, 4.5, 5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 6, 5, 5.5. Helen Mercarella and Andrew Robinson, 5211A. Execution scores 3, 4, 3.5, 4.5. Synchronization scores 4.5, 4, 4, 4, 5. We now commence the fourth round of dice, which will also be the final round of dice for all age groups. Don't forget to show these athletes your appreciation as they leave the water. Matthew Azzopardi and Natalie Kozlov, 403B. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 6, 6. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 7, 6, 6. Thank you, Matthew and Natalie. Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson, 5233D. Execution scores 6.5, 6, 7.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6.5, 7, 7, 6, 7. Thank you, Sarah and Eliza. Nigel Dennis and Dwan Spitcher, 103B. Execution scores 4, 4.5, 2, 4.5. Synchronization scores 5, 4, 5, 5, 6. Thank you, Nigel and Dwan. Tisha Managay and Sol Shim, 105B. Ladies and gentlemen, the referee has declared a failed dive. Thank you, Tisha and Sol. Jamie. Jamie Shields and Helen Lewsom, 201A. Execution scores 4, 5, 4.5, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 5.5, 5, 6, 6. Thank you, Jamie and Helen. Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis, 105B. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. Thank you, Kiara and Mia. Eliane Granland and Samuel Will, 205C. Execution scores 5, 5, 7, 7. Synchronization scores 6.5, 6.5, 7, 6, 6.5. Thank you, Eliane and Samuel. Zach Will and Lacey Beaushire, 405C. Execution scores 5, 5, 6, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 6.5. Thank you, Zach and Lacey. Sally Cream and Christoph Michael, 105B. Execution scores 6.5, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 7, 6, 6.5, 6, 7.5. Thank you, Christoph and Sally. Molly Bowman and Natasha Waldroff, 5231D. Execution scores 5.5, 6.5, 5, 5. Synchronization scores 5 from all judges. Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Natasha. Serena Lee and Noah Dow, 105B. Execution scores 5, 5, 6, 5.5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 5.5, 6, 6, 6. Thank you, Serena and Noah. Caitlin Murphy and Chloe Robinson, 5233D. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 6, 7. Synchronization scores 5, 5.5, 5.5, 5, 6. Thank you, Caitlin and Chloe. Monique Collin and Lainey Wilkins, 403C. Execution scores 6, 5.5, 5.5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6. Thank you, Monique and Lainey. Zachariah Gindi and Nina Papalado, 405C. Execution scores 6, 5, 5, 6.5. Synchronization scores 6, 7, 6.5, 6, 6. Thank you, Zachariah and Nina. Blake Connors and Lachlan Nguyen, 5233D. Execution scores 6, 6.5, 6, 5. Synchronization scores 5, 5.5, 5.5, 5, 5. Thank you, Blake and Lachlan. We now go into the final round of the 100 plus combined years age group. 4 teams remaining. Julie Matkovic and Jane Moran, 202B. Execution scores 4.5, 4, 5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 4.5, 4.5, 4, 3, 5. Thank you, Julie and Jane. Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer, 5211A. Execution scores 5.5, 5, 6.5, 5.5. Synchronization scores 5, 5, 5.5, 6, 5. Thank you, Katie and Jacqueline. Narissa Grabbett and Ross Burden, 5211A. Execution scores 5, 5, 4.5, 4. Synchronization scores 3, 3, 2.5, 2, 3. Thank you, Narissa and Ross. Helen Mercarella and Andrew Robinson. 201A. Execution scores 5, 5, 6.5, 5. Synchronization scores 5.5, 5.5, 6, 6, 6. Thank you, Andrew and Helen. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes the Masters Synchronized events. Thank you very much to all our athletes, and thank you to our referee, judges, and recording secretariat. Now, if we could ask the teams to make their way to the marshalling area, so we need the top 4 teams. We need the top 4 teams in the under 100 category and the top 3 teams in the 100 plus category. If they could please make their way to the marshalling area. So we're just putting up the results for the men's, women's mixed 3 metre synchronised under 100 category. And can you see those on the board? All right, so the top 4 teams, we would request that they please go to the marshalling area. The top 4 teams, please report to the marshalling area. All right, and the top 3 teams in the 100 plus combined age category. So the top 3 teams in the 100 plus combined age category, if they could please report to the marshalling area. Thank you. Just a reminder, 3-metre boards should only be for synchro competitors. Synchro competitors only on the 3-metre boards. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask everyone to hold the boards for just a few moments. We're going to do the medal presentation for the Masters Synchro, so we will ask you kindly to hold the boards. Ladies and gentlemen, the medal ceremony for the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro under 100 years. The medals for this event are being presented by Jenny Donnett. Jenny Donnett is a 4-time Olympian and was the first woman in any sport to represent Australia in 4 Olympics. She was the Olympic team captain and flag bearer for the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. She was a gold medalist in 3-metre at the 1982 Brisbane Commonwealth Games, gold medalist 3-metre in 1990 in Auckland, and was a silver medalist in the 3-metre in the 1986 Edinburgh Commonwealth Games. She's also a level 6 aqua judge. In 3rd place, the bronze medalists, representing Queensland, Kiara Spitcher and Mia Gillis with a score of 171 points even. In 2nd place, the silver medalists with a score of 176.82, representing Western Australia, Eliza Cole and Sarah Watson. And diving by invitation and finishing in 2nd place overall, representing Western Australia, Sally Cream and Christoph Michael. And in first place, the gold medalists, a combined team of Western Australia and South Australia, Elian Granland and Samuel Will with a score of 181.89. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand to our medalists and place getters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more medal presentation to go. Ladies and gentlemen, the medal presentation for the men's, women's and mixed 3-metre synchro 100 plus combined age group. Medals to this event are once again being presented by Jenny Donnett. Jenny is a 4-time Olympian and the first woman in any sport to represent Australia at 4 Olympics Games. In third place, the bronze medalists representing New South Wales, Narissa Grabbett and Ross Burden with a score of 104.55. In second place, the silver medalist, a combined team of South Australia and Victoria, Helen Mercarella and Andrew Robinson with a score of 108.15. And in first place, the gold medalists representing New South Wales, Katie Rosenthal and Jacqueline Brewer with a score of 134.40. Now, a little known fact, if they'd got another 2.6 points, they would have got their combined age. Right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big hand to our medalists and thank you to our medal presenter, Jenny Donnett. And we'll give them 5 seconds to just clear the boards or clear the pool deck. And then boards are once again open.